All right, lovelies, it is time to get spooked. I am so excited to dive into this palette. Thank you, Gourmande Girls, for sending this over to me. I'm honestly just speechless, and it was so exciting to me because I knew that this was going to be an amazing color story, because this is a palette in collaboration with Doodles by the Bunny, and if you haven't seen Angela's creative work, you need to go check her out. I'll make sure to have her Instagram linked down below, of course, as well as Gourmande Girls if you want to see some beautiful content. So I have actually duped the vibes of one of Angela's creations before, if you are not familiar with Doodles by the Bunny. Originally, she had started out doing what I would say digital art, like inspiration of, you know, whether it's like, ooh, this is how I wish this palette had looked, or if I was able to create a palette, this is how it would look. And now here she is, and she's had several collabs, and I'm so excited to get to try one of her visions. So the palette that I had duped, I think, was the Anastasia like Blossom palette. That obviously wasn't an actual palette, but this was something that Angela had kind of come up and created, and I had a lot of fun doing that. I will have that video linked down below if you do want to check it out. I think that was not only my first duping the vibes, but also my first build your own palette that I did with Kendra Morgan Official. So I'll make sure to have that link down below. But here we are getting to play with Spooked today, and I'm so excited for this one because I have tried out a Gourmande Girls palette before. I have the Galactic Gourmande palette, which is a set of 6 duo / multi-chromes, and I really enjoyed that little palette. I thought it was a great way to try out the brand. I did purchase that palette. This one again was sent over to me. It's so pretty. It is total like fall / Halloween vibes, and that's one thing that I really like about this palette. Now we're going to be trying this out together. I have done swatches of this already, but we're going to be trying it out on the eyes for the first time together. But I do enjoy the fact that this, I really think, while you get that sort of like typical Halloween vibe from this color story, it's also a palette that can carry you through the fall. You know, like it's not like you're gonna wear it for 1 week and then be like, okay, now what? So I think we will end up doing 2 looks with this. But before we dive into what's inside, let's take a look at this beautiful packaging. And that is, I think, one of the things that, you know, Angela is so great at, is creating this beautiful, fun packaging. You can see that this is a very beautiful multi-chromatic lettering on here. You've got the spider webs. The sleeve, by the way, there is a sleeve that comes with this. It's the same as the inside packaging. And honestly, I prefer a sleeve over a box, but I probably won't keep the sleeve. You know me, I don't usually do that. I want to be able to get into my palettes as quick as possible. So I do really love this. And then you do have the ingredients on the back. This is a cruelty-free palette, and the shelf life is 12 months. So you have a nice mirror in here. I'm going to try not to blind you with it, however, but let's take a look at the inside of this. If you can see the nice details, you of course have some of that spider webbing again, and then I really like the reflective surrounding of the pan. So very beautiful job, and these colors. Now again, I have not put this on my eyes yet, but when I swatched it, I was very excited. I'm very excited to dive into this one. I also realize that maybe I should have come on camera and showed you the inside of the palette before I got my grubby fingers into it. Well, my clean fingers. So I'm gonna show you a little like clip of this palette before my fingers went into it, because the embossing was really cute. But already, even just from the one set of swatches, the embossing, especially on the duochromes, it's pretty much gone at this point. I was really curious to try out this palette because the other Gourmande Girls palette that I have is an all shimmer palette. It's an all like multi-chrome palette. So I was really excited to try out the matte formula, and upon first touch, if you will, I'm feeling pretty hopeful. These feel very silky. They feel, you know, almost like that very satiny feel. I like it. So I am very intrigued and very excited to dive in. Now, if we haven't met before, my name is Kelly and I'm a professional hair and makeup artist. And here on my channel, I strive to keep beauty real. Real honest, real relatable, and real fun. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, don't forget to click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. So again, today I think we'll do 2 looks, 1 on each eye. But before we dive into playing in this palette, I'm gonna show you swatches. I'll go ahead and show you the swatches that I took in the natural direct light, and also the ones that I took here in studio light. So we'll go ahead and do that first, and then we'll get spooky. So we have Ghoul, and then Trick, Apple Bob, Haunted, Bloody, Fright, and Cauldron. That first row ends in that dark purple, and then the second row starts with that grungy green. And we have Scream, Pumpkin. Let me see if I can get a little shift on Pumpkin. There we go. Now you can really see that. Pumpkin, Spellbook, Treat, Spirit. Now you can see on Spirit there's that little red bit towards the edge of the swatch. That's from Terror right next to it. Sorry, that got a little messy. It's not quite that shifty. It's beautiful, but it's not quite that shifty. And then Terror and Spooky. All right, I am so excited to dive in. I will say, after doing these swatches, I have some thoughts on the shades, on the colors, and all of that. I'm gonna hold off until the end of the video to give all of my thoughts on that, just because performance is key, right? So let's go ahead and dive in. I literally have no idea where I'm going with these. Part of me wants to do something that is like more just like general fall appropriate on one side, and then one that's more, you know, like spooked, right? Just because I do want to see the versatility of this. If I am looking for something fun and creative, that's great. But if I'm also just kind of like going for something that's like yummy fall vibes, can I get there with this? I have a feeling these are both going to end up being pretty dramatic. I just feel like playing in makeup today. So thank you for coming along on the ride. Let's get into it. right, here we are with the finished look one, and unfortunately you won't be able to hear it, but right now we have some very appropriate spooky sounding thunder going on outside. We're having a weird midday storm. Now, I do feel like everything performed pretty well. The only thing that I noticed, and maybe you can see it in the footage, is that when I went through with Cauldron on my like crease area, it was getting a little bit patchy. Now, I mean, with purples, we all know purple is a really hard one to get a very easily workable formula out of. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't the most blendable purple I've ever had. So that was really it, but to sort of like mask that, I decided to blend in a little bit more than I was planning on. I blended Terror in, that's that red. I will see in the future, like trying this red more on its own. It's definitely more of like a pinkier red. I mean, right here it looks fairly red, but you really have to pack it on, which you could totally do. But like even now on the back of my finger, maybe you can see that that has like a little bit of more of a pink tone to it. So you just really have to pack that on to get a true red out of it. Not a big deal. I definitely like the brightness that Terror brought into this situation. But other than that, I mean, everything else worked really well. That bloody shade is very pretty. It's very, very vibrant. And the Treat shade. Now, I think that Treat is just considered a shimmer. I think both Treat and Apple Bob, those are two of the three shimmers that I used. These are both probably considered just shimmers. However, Treat has maybe it is considered a duochrome because it does definitely have a little bit of a shift. It's a purple with like a pink flip to it. Like it's delicate, but it definitely has that. It just gives it a little bit of texture, and I really like that apple bob shade. Now, obviously, she didn't really get to shine a lot, just being an inner corner shade, but that's okay. I just wanted to pop that one in. I will also say, when I used Cauldron on my lower lash line, it worked beautifully. However, it's a lot easier, I feel like, to get a smooth application on a lower lash line than it is in a crease, especially a 41-year-old crease, if you know what I'm saying. All right, what else did I use? Oh, I did use Spooky. I did use that black shade. It is very pretty. It was nice and dark. And then I just followed up. Let's see, what did I use? Oh, I used a little bit of the KVD tattoo liner. And then I used the original Haus Laboratories Identify gel liner in my inner line. And then, of course, just some mascara. I just chose the Rare Beauty mascara. I'm just trying to use this one up. Now, for this side, like I said, I'm going to go for more of like a general fall vibes. I'm just really having a hard time picking, but I do think I'm going to use Trick. That's the shade right here, the one that like flips kind of from like a goldy greeny into like a warm pink situation. It's very, very pretty. So Trick is definitely going to be used. Also, you know that I was excited to see this Scream shade in this palette. These like earthy, grungy greens are totally my vibe. So that's kind of what I'm starting out with as inspiration. Let's get started. Safe to say, I love this look. So I went through and finished off with, again, one of the original Haus Laboratories liners. This is a really cool shade. It was the shade Sculpture. So it's kind of this like warm orangey brown situation. Okay, can we just talk about this shade? Like, I don't necessarily think that this Trick shade is unique, but it is very pretty. It's, oh, and the camera might not be picking it up, but it is that beautiful, shifty, like green to amber. I love all of the colors that I used. I had zero problems. I mean, I had zero problems with anything that I used. I just dabbed on a little bit of that, what is it, Spirit shade, just to get more like the sparkle from that shade, because it is, I mean, this shade, you'd have to really pack it on to get that like full opacity. And I think that because it's so metallic, if I did that on the inner corner, it would actually be darker when it wasn't hitting the light. So I just used a little bit on a brush to get more of the sparkle, and then it was Ghoul underneath. Well, I mean, obviously Ghoul and then that Haunted, that orange shade, but I just wanted that like lightness from Ghoul and then the sparkle over the top. I like it. I like the fact that you could definitely use Spirit as like a topper shade, or also, you know, pack it on. And also, if you noticed, I did not use any glitter glue or anything. I did wet my brush for all of the lid shimmers, but not the inner corners, actually. Now, the only thing, I wouldn't say that I had problems with it, but this Ghoul shade, this white, is not an overly highly pigmented white. It is a little bit softer, which is okay. I mean, you can pack it on a little bit, but it isn't going to be like your bright, bright, bright white. What it does work well as is almost like an eraser, so it helps blend edges. You can get a little bit of a bright pop on the inner corner if you saw that before I added on the little sparkle from Spirit. So I don't necessarily think that it's necessary in this palette, but it does add to the theme, and it would help soften out edges of other colors, and you could almost like make them a little lighter, a little more, I don't want to say pastel, but you know, give it that little bit like lighter, more sheer feel. So now I'm gonna go choose a lip that I think might actually work with both of these, and I will give you my final thoughts on this palette. All right, so I do have to say, I really enjoyed using this palette. I think it's so fun, it's so cute. Like, this just makes me happy. It just makes me happy. I mean, of course, the packaging is killer. I think that it is really good quality packaging as well. I mean, it is cardboard, but I have no problem with that. And then the color story. Of course, this is such a fun color story. I think that this really does tiptoe the line between something that you can use throughout fall and then also something that you can get a little creative with around Halloween time. And, you know, I love the fact that there are some bright shades. There are some like murky shades. I really like this. Now, again, I did have some issues with that cauldron shade on my lid, but that really could just be me today. That's one thing about first impressions, but I didn't have problems with that on the lower lash line. And again, a purple is a hard thing to do. I will also say, I know that I had mentioned that I felt like if you blended Terror and Cauldron together, you do get really close to that Fright shade, but using Fright really close to the lash line on this side, it is a bit more brown. So I just wanted to say that because originally I was like, well, maybe we could just take Fright out of the palette and you could just blend the two together to get there, but it is a bit different. And I know a lot of people don't want to have to blend shadows together. The one shadow that I would probably pop out of here, I get why it's in here because of the theme of the palette, but honestly, I just feel like for what you get out of the white, I would probably have nixed that one. You know, it's not something that a lot of people are going to use, first of all. If you do want that white, you're going to have to put it over a white base, which there will be some people, if you're an Instagram makeup person, you know, if like you mostly are doing looks to pop onto Instagram as like creative inspiration, you might use it for that. I just don't see a lot of people reaching for this. It is a great brightener, but it's just not going to be that utilized. I wish for my own makeup purposes that there had been like something sheer and iridescent, or in all honesty, a basic inner corner highlight shade. Like this Spirit shade you can get the glitter from, but you're not gonna wanna pack that on. Obviously not everybody's gonna want a neon green inner corner all the time. And while this pumpkin shade definitely could be a cute inner corner shade, you know, just like dusted on a little lightly, I don't know that that like teal flip is going to be something that's gonna work with every look that you do. I did also wanna mention, it's not a big deal to me, but when I did the swatches, we'll see what it looks like when I take this off my eye, but when I did the swatches, Bloody did stain my arm. I mean, I don't really care about that. That's never a thing for me, but it did stain my arm, so I did just want to mention that. But all in all, I really enjoyed this palette. I think that this is going to be a great one to have through the fall. Again, you can get a wide variety of looks out of this. I personally love that it is a 14 pan palette. That like 12 to 14 pan situation is like my sweet spot. I will say, actually, I would think like 12 to 16. I like some options, but I really like the fact that even though you have quite a few shades in here, it's not ginormous. You know, to me, this is still a very travel-sized palette. It's not so big that it's going to be cumbersome to like pack in a bag or to try to fit in your vanity. So I do really like that. I think they did a great job. So congrats to Angela, also known as Doodles by the Bunny, and Gourmande Girls for this amazingly cute palette. Thank you for sending it over to me, by the way, as well. I do not know the price of this palette. Okay, I'm popping in really quick from later in the day, but Christina got back to me and she said that the palette is going to be $54.99. I don't have a code with the brand. I do think that I know a couple creators who do have codes, however, so if I do dig those up, I will leave those down in a pinned comment as well. So let me know your thoughts on this. Are you going to snag it? I really think this is a fun one, and to be honest, I do see it being one that I reach for more than I would think upon first glance now that I have touched it. I think it is great quality, it's fun to work with, and the shimmers all worked really beautifully. I mean, for not using a glitter glue on any of them. They all performed really well. The mattes are beautiful. Honestly, this is the kind of matte formula that I like. It's something that takes a bit of building. I personally like that because it gives you options. It lets you be a little bit more blendy, or you can really pack it on for high impact, and I enjoy that. So I am very, very excited. Again, please let me know your thoughts down below. If you did enjoy this video, if it was helpful, if you enjoyed getting to see these looks, it would mean so much to me if you did like this video, and I will see you really soon.